Hello, everybody. This is Keys to ESP, Episode 6, Return of the Sanctum. What? Mutants? This is your host, Enhanced with 2 Pips John, and I am joined once again with members of Team ESP. We have Dark Harbinger Benson.
Hello.
We have Rad Trays.
Yo.
The House Always Wins Josh.
Hello.
Hello, guys. Welcome once again. We are Keys to ESP, and this time we are going to be discussing about mass mutation and continuation of our set discussion. So first off, we're going to go through our thoughts about mass mutation as a set as a whole, perhaps what the meta is and how things have changed within the world of Keyforge, but then hopefully dive into more discussion about our likes, dislikes with the set, and how our impressions of the community has changed with the new release of this set. We're going to dive into a few cards and hopefully share a bit of what captures our hearts and minds, and if anything has changed through these new implementations of new mechanisms that Keyforge has introduced. Before we dive into any further ado, let's check up with the guys and see what's happening in the world of Keyforge thus far. How have you guys been so far? That's Dennis. Have you been doing anything over the past week with Keyforge?
Actually, no. This is one of the longest periods where I haven't even touched Keyforge at all. I don't know why. I might have been working too much. I was out of commission for a bit. I usually get sick around this time, so I haven't touched Keyforge at all. I haven't touched Keyforge. This is the longest period I haven't touched Keyforge even before the pandemic started.
So is that like a week or 2 weeks? What are you talking about?
I think it's been 3 weeks now. I think the last time Benson and I played was like maybe even a month ago.
Yeah, but that's just gameplay, right? You've been touching decks.
No, I actually haven't. I haven't.
Well, at least you've been doing this recording, so we know that you've been at least talking about Keyforge for at least a week.
I have.
Yeah, true.
But nothing else as far as any other Keyforge related stuff. I mean, sold decks, but I haven't even looked for it, so I'm going to look for it now. Hopefully mail it out tomorrow.
Don't say that on recording. Come on.
How about you, Benson? How about you? How you been doing with Keyforge?
Yeah, things have been pretty dry in terms of gameplay, but in terms of content creation, still working on it. Working through that box that's been behind me somewhere since like the first episode we recorded for this podcast. But yeah, just been enjoying it. Trying to look through decks with new lenses, and try to find my craft in terms of presenting that content in some way, shape, or form that's accessible and enjoyable by viewers. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Cool. And Josh, how you been doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, dude. No, there's a Keyforge gameplay drought with regards to like in terms of actually playing. It's been like maybe like almost a month and a half or so. Yeah. However, weekly unboxings continue. Looking to see if I can join our little communities like challenge tournaments like online, but apart from that, not really, no.
Okay. So it sounds like everyone's having a bit of Keyforge dilemma here. Although there seems to be a lot of creative energy flowing in terms of different types of creation related to Keyforge, which sounds pretty good still. Sounds like a good chance to get a little more of those creative juices flowing. Hopefully that can help us decide upon how to play cards if we push that envelope a little too much. Awesome. So just as you guys as listeners will be tuning into this episode, it would have been a week out because we have recently just gotten a new drop of the Crucible cast from Fantasy Flight, where it was, I believe, the 25th Crucible cast, if I am not mistaken on the number count. But they did talk about some of the developers discussed the way in which they were approaching Keyforge, the game, during these challenging times. That was their main topic about how they played Keyforge during the pandemic, and it was a lot of discussions about playing online via Skype, and then of course a couple rules clarification. I mean, we as Team ESP have discussed this already, at least on our end, on how we chose to have our own pods. So, but if you haven't given the Crucible cast a check for this new one, go ahead and go over to Fantasy Flight Games YouTube channel and check that out. I think it's a nice short video. Nothing too important in terms of regular news and such on Keyforge. There isn't too much to be had at this point in time, at least not from this new news drop. Moving into our main topic about Mass Mutation, the new set. It recently dropped within this year, actually, within the last 6 months. So just touching base, I want to see, how did this set change coming into this set? How did your thoughts change, guys? Were you guys like super excited? Were you guys a bit bummed out? Where'd you guys stand? Let's go with Josh. Where do you stand with this new set thus far?
Man, you know me, man. The more stuff I can throw on the board, the more I love it. So, Mass Mutation has been super fun during the short time that I managed to play it since its release. I love the many different things they've added in each house, and I think they've amplified some things and kind of put caveats on other things, and I think it's a very well balanced set. In my opinion, it's the most balanced of them all. Worlds Collide is very close, though. I think it's actually the same on par with Worlds.
Okay, so you're saying within the set itself, everything is kind of works pretty well on its own?
Within the set itself, it works on its own. I love it. Yeah.
Okay. And is it balanced with the other sets, or are you saying it's like more heavy, like more skewed towards Mass Mutation, or does kind of the other set still hold up to itself?
So it's
Or do you-
interesting.
Mhm.
In my opinion, I think it's actually weakened some Coda decks, especially the typical big steel or the typical rush Coda decks, because of a lot of the capture that happens through just enhancements alone. In addition, all the things you can do with Captured Amber is really great in this set, Mass Mutation. As far as AOA is concerned, um, I've been experimenting when the first set first came out, played some of my really good AOA decks, and they've managed to kind of, I guess, 50-50 in terms of win-loss. Actually, no, maybe like 65-35 in favor of Mass Mutation. Worlds Collide is probably the closest to Mass Mutation as far as like balance and how not only the experience is, but how competitive things can get. Yeah.
All right. Well, how about you, Benson? How have you been feeling Mass Mutation, especially since it first dropped?
Since it first dropped, I had my reservations on what to think. It was pretty exciting in terms of the enhancements, the whole mutants entry and stuff like that. I was like, okay, cool, that's something new. To be honest, I wasn't so hot on the design of like the box with like some sort of niffle on the box, but it was like that highlighter color, multicolored disc that reminded me of like the dark light mini golf stuff. It reminded me of that, so like style wise wasn't my thing. But that aside, as I play with the set, the more I feel like set 4 has been the best set yet. I think it took a lot of aspects from Coda that I really liked and re-injected it into how well Worlds Collide worked as a whole in terms of pulling in the board state, the other effects you can bounce all across the table, and like there's a lot more depth that was introduced in set 3 and just got enhanced. Sorry for the pun. In set 4. So yeah, like at the end of the day, I think this is my favorite set thus far, and I'll hold to that, and we'll see what the next set after this brings into the fold.
All right. And Dennis, how you been holding up with this set, and how do you enjoy it? I do know you possibly, perhaps, purchased a ton of stock, but how are you holding up with this set, and how does you feel it holds up?
Um, in regards to stock, I would say it's definitely my second most bought display or like decks. From a deck opening perspective, I definitely enjoy it more than any other sets, just because it's the first set where I don't typically I don't crack the plastic, just because you can see the deck list and just look from there. But in Mass Mutation, you are kind of forced to open the plastic and look at each card because the enhancements actually really change the deck, which is great. As much as I love opening Mass Mutation decks, because it brings in another layer of excitement to it. Um, I really like opening it. I enjoy it. Like, there's a lot more things you can do with the board as far as the set. I think one of us said it in our little bubble. I forgot who it was. It clicked as soon as one of you guys said it. But I feel like Mass Mutation was did a better version of AOA. So what AOA was trying to do, I think Mass Mutation did it a lot better. Pretty similar idea in my opinion. Board base, try to control the board, but because of I guess the difference in AOA to CoTA was too far power wise, in my opinion. But Mass Mutation did it a lot better because of the board effects slash the things you can do with the board. CoTA cannot keep up to it, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, as for myself, I think Mass Mutations was a lot of fun. When it first came out, it was totally out of the blue. Everyone was kind of wondering what these enhancement things are going to be. And there's a lot of advertisements or a lot of push towards making every single card different and even more unique of a card game, which I felt like was a huge boon to this game. Like it made it so much more kind of out of control to a certain extent when people can't expect even more crazy or can't even expect like what crazier things might happen or see in this set, which we have seen online, a lot of crazy kind of enhanced cards. Perhaps nothing like a 5-drop hit card yet, but that potential is still there, which makes it super impressive to any extent, right? So I think just the fact that every card can be different now, even though my card may have the same name as yours, but the effects of it can be totally different, makes it super interesting of a game, and even more unique to make this unique card game that much more unique as well. So I just off the top of my head though, I feel like this set does introduce a lot of different new things, like every set, right? But the enhancements, there's things about more mutants. There's things more about like new cards too, even the gigantic creatures, right?
Mhm.
So I'm just want to see what is kind of one of your favorite items that got pulled out or discussed that you've seen so far that you enjoy the most out of this set? Personally, for myself, it's the enhancements, as I already mentioned, where every card can be unique. Was something maybe like the giant creatures, maybe the sins, maybe those xenofiends, the mix of mutants kind of cards. Did that kind of catch you guys? What's kind of like one of your biggest pools for you guys for this set? Dennis, you got anything?
Biggest pool for this set. Tough question. There's a lot of things I really like. Um,
If you had to lean towards one though.
I have to lean towards one. Okay, I'm gonna go from broad to specific. Okay, I really like the mutant aspect of things because what happened was it brought back a bunch of the older cards that we have. Like, let's say, I'll just go right into the specific. It's just it made Bad Penny into a Rad Penny, which made it so much, probably I would say 10 times better. I like it a lot more because as much as I don't want to say Bad Penny was bad, but it was you needed other stuff to do with it. With Rad Penny, you get the steal and then it doesn't die.
Well,
So-
Bad Penny, it's bad in its name, right?
Yeah, that's why. But the thing is, Rad Penny made it so much radder, you know? The combinations in Mass Mutation, honestly, like the Mutants, allowed it to be more, I guess, things you can do. You can add more things you can do with it. Like I said, Rad Penny. There's another card that makes it a lot better too, but we'll discuss that. But like the mutant trait is, to me, is like made the card so much better.
Okay, so you're talking about like as in the mutant trait itself that you just mentioned, or do you mean more of like similar cards but coming back in a different flavor, kind of like Rad Penny with Bad Penny, or like Snarette with Charette kind of thing, or do you mean the trait itself?
The trait and the effects that it had. So the older original cards was good,
Mhm.
but it became better with mutant. That's the way I see
Okay.
it.
Okay. So seeing something familiar but with something of a new flair to it.
Exactly.
Cool. How about you, Benson? What's something about this set that's catching you that's kind of not letting go?
I mean, from day one, I think the shock factor was probably in the giant creatures, but the hype was and will continue to be the sin. So, like, I'm still like in the rest of my display box I've yet to open, I'm still hoping that, I'm gonna pull one of those crazy sin decks. With that being said, yeah, like I think I'll resign myself to that. That being like the main thing in this set that's unique to this set. That pulls my attention in, and it's something that I keep wanting to find.
So a deck with sins in there.
Yeah, or more of the sins and a good support profile as well to build around that essentially as
Okay.
support.
Yeah, so let's dive briefly into this. Actually, no, let's touch with Josh, but then we'll come back and dive briefly into
Yeah.
the sins because I want to talk about that. So, how about you, Josh? How about what's something that's been drawing you into this set, specifically unique to this set of Mass Mutations?
In like generally speaking, what drew me to the set when it first came out was the giant creatures, but I soon later found that like I had more fun like opening each deck and being surprised and looking for enhancements. And I love the what you can do with the enhancements, given kind of like the artifacts and the upgrades that are present. But specifically speaking, I didn't really get the hype of sins until I actually got a sin deck where I pulled Gluttony and Envy. And if I may just explain that really quickly, Gluttony is, I believe, a 5-power creature that on play, 6-power creature that
Mhm.
on play you exalt Gluttony for each sin that's present on the board. And then when you reap with Gluttony, you actually transfer all Ember from every creature on your side of the board to your pools. That's an insane amount of Ember that potential. And Envy, which is a 2-power elusive creature that when you
3-power elusive, yeah.
3-power elusive creature that when you reap, you're actually capturing all of your opponent's Ember. So pretty nuts stuff. But what makes that even nuttier in the deck that I pulled was that I have an exchange officer, which is a 3-power play fight reap, use a friendly Star Alliance card, and that was in shadows. And I have a officer Tink, which is a Star Alliance card that is 2-power elusive, and it's an action that he has an action that allows you to swap Tink with another friendly creature in order to use that creature this turn. So essentially, I'd call Shadows to use Star Alliance, to use Gluttony, and take every single piece of Ember you have onto my board, on my board onto my pool. So love that pull, and yeah, been awesome.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so speaking with about sins, since Benson and Josh did bring them up, I was wondering, what's the viability of the sins? I believe every deck, if there is, because sins are one of those special kind of cards, but I believe minimum you would receive at least 3. Is that correct?
Yep.
I
think
don't
that's
think I've
right,
seen
yeah.
any deck with less than 3.
Yeah.
3 is
think that's
minimum.
Yeah, and with that though, and there are decks that have come to the surface where there are 7 sins, which is very interesting. But do you need all 7, or is 7 sins too much? I feel like, and if possible, then what's the best number? Would it be maybe 4 or 5 if 7 is too much? And is there perhaps a specific sin that you want out of all of them, or a specific one that is probably weaker than all of them that you don't want? What do you guys think?
In my opinion, the best amount of sins. It's great to have 7 sins because don't get me wrong, they all synergize with each other. To me, it's 5, just because depends on what you have, but 5 to me is enough. The important things, the important sins that you would want, at least for me, is definitely number 1 is going to be gluttony. Number 2 is going to be envy. I think those two actually are on top of each other. It's either like 1A or 1B. Everything else to me is just a bonus. Probably my third favorite would have to be pride because you can ward, and there's not a lot of warding in Mass Mutation compared to Worlds Collide. There's also, I think it was greed that lets you generate if you don't use any creature.
No,
I think
that's
that's
sloth.
greed. Oh, that's sloth. Sorry, sloth.
Greed is card draw.
Yeah. Sloth is if you don't do anything, you get amber. Yeah.
Yep. And then, and then the last one is greed. Those are the cards that I would want. Wrath is pretty good too, not gonna lie, but it's not on top of my list. So if I had to get 5, it's those 5.
How about you, Josh? Since you do have a sin deck, do you feel like what you have is adequate, or or is it only because you also have the Chief Tink and the other combos that draws you towards the sins right now?
Yeah, so you know what? The more sins, the better. But I think with a good supporting cast, I think 3, 4 sins are enough. You have the right combination. Like, ideally, if I were to pull a deck, the sins that I would want would be Wrath, the 3 power, 3 armor taunt that has like I think poison. Because it's a nasty 3 armor. It's tough to get through 3 armor. Like a lot of people kind of underestimate having that extra 3 armor every single turn. Also, it also has hazardous, right? I think so. That's another thing.
No, as poison.
Just poison. Yeah, so that thing.
Which kills it effectively even better than hazardous.
Yeah, so it's even better. Anyway, I would want wrath, I would want gluttony, envy, and I would actually want sloth because sloth is just you can literally leave it there, and when you call another house and you're not using anything on the board, like you're calling another house to play cards, you're getting amber, right? So it's a great kind of just residual kind of every turn generation type thing. Greed, I'm not necessarily too I could live without greed. Everyone wants to draw, but in my opinion, it's like if you're not able to house cheat or use your hand with greed, you're just chaining yourself, in my opinion.
Okay. Cool. How about you, Benson?
So my take on the sins, even though I am looking for that type of deck, I think it does end up falling on the shoulders of the support houses and which houses is paired up with. And at the end of the day, which houses you look for, especially within the set, is dependent on your play style. And because of how robust Mass Mutation is, there's literally a deck for any play style. You can find it. If you could custom build it, oh my goodness, there would be some crazy decks of different types all over. And sins could be a core component. It's not the end all be all. And like everybody else has shared, it's like it really depends. So my personal ideal, since I like to have speed and my Untamed is my favorite house, especially in this set too, that would be one of the support houses. The other, in all likelihood, I would push for Logos, I believe. If I'm focusing more on speed. So it's kind of like building your ideal deck based off of what aspects you want to maximize, and it's a diagram that way. But in terms of that style, my set of sins, and like everybody said, the more the merrier, because in and of themselves, the sins are incredibly powerful. So when you have the full set, when you have all of them out, they're that much more powerful. But in a game of Keyforge, what are the odds of you getting all of them out at once? Depends on the support houses, depends on the cards within Dis itself. So the core bits in terms of my playstyle that I would really love to see for the Sins is Gluttony, Greed, and probably, and there's going to be some editing for this because it's a hard choice. If there was 3 only, then the third slot would go to Wrath, just so there's a taunt. If there's 4, then instead of Wrath, I would take Envy with Desire. So with Desire, since that wasn't mentioned yet, it's a 3 power and increases key cost by 4 amber. It has a reap effect, forge a key at current cost, reduced by 1 amber for each friendly Sin creature. Hence why if the Sin count was 4, I would take Desire, since that's forging at current cost. Or like forging at 6 baseline, assuming there's no other key cost increases other than Desire itself. The Sins in and of themselves could be a very long discussion, but to simplify my answer, that would be my selection, and it's my answer is almost a non-answer because it's subjective, and that's how I see it. I could have a completely different build around different set of Sins for a different style of deck that I enjoy. But yeah, like having them all is gravy, but having them all and not having the right support houses or cards in Dis ruins it. And I believe there are decks out there like that I wouldn't want to get, even if they have all 7 Sin.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. No, for me, I feel like the Sins, to a certain extent, it's a bit like the Horsemen from the first set, I think.
Yep.
Where it becomes very, because they're all creatures, right? It becomes board heavy. So I actually don't know if having all 7 Sins, I mean, you guys say more the merrier. I think having all 7 actually is almost a detriment to a certain extent, because you just have a bunch of creatures that clog up your hand if you can't get them out. I mean, yay if you, and then of course you're going to cost Dis to get them out, but it's an easy way to get yourself locked out, I think.
Yeah,
and even then, I mean, I feel like maybe 4 or 5 is a great number already. Having more than that is maybe perhaps too much, and get into collector's territory, I think.
Yeah,
While I
if there's an
agree,
over reliance, yeah.
While I agree, there are like with us, like I said, like emphasis on the supporting cast. If you have 7 Sins with double subject Kirby, which is a play fight replay a creature from your hand, beautiful. But if you have 7 Sins and a Quixel Stone, burn that deck, right? So, or like
sell it.
put it on display, like
Collectors.
put it let a collector buy it. But like that's what I'm saying. It's the supporting cast versus the actual number, in my opinion, that matters.
So what I'm getting with what we were talking about is just that one house / a set of cards that synergize with each other doesn't make a deck. Just because you have a 7 Sin deck, whatever number amount of Sin deck you have, doesn't mean you're going to win every single game. Point is, it still comes down to the whole deck itself. And because of a 36 pool cards, there's infinitely amount of combination of decks that can be in Keyforge. So there's no deck that's unbeatable. Just because you have a 7 Sin deck, just because you bring a 7 Sin deck into a tournament, doesn't mean you're going to win everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you bring a 7 Sin deck, it's like Mars. It just plays by itself.
yeah.
CoTA Mars.
Cool. So, well, I'm glad that we at least had a discussion about this one aspect or one thing about mass mutation that came out thus far. So what are some other things that, that have brought more goodness to Keyforge? Maybe we could jump into a different house, perhaps. Someone pick up, any of you guys can pick up one of the houses, and let's take those and discuss whether you want to do draw discussion, enhancement discussion, capturing. Where do you guys want to go?
Okay,
Josh,
before we
Dennis,
do
where
that,
do you want to go?
Sorry, I want to ask Benson if he wants to take Untamed. Do you want to take Untamed?
yeah, I'll take Untamed.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. No, but
So,
you guys go. Select whoever wants to talk.
So what's up with Untamed in this new set? Let's see. Has it changed, Vincent?
Untamed. Okay, so it's still my favorite house. And it's kind of reestablished itself in this set. I think in terms of play feel, when I run with an Untamed in this set, it brings back a lot of nostalgia from Call of the Archons, the very first set. In terms of the
Really?
sheer amount of amber generation that's possible, that's within Untamed, it's jumped back up a bit. So before in set 2 and 3, it dwindled down, and like it didn't feel like the CoTA amber machine it was. But it now kind of has that feel to it again. Again, it all depends on having the correct card pool, right? Or like not correct, but the ideal for that particular direction. But what makes Untamed so great in my eyes in this set is the toolkit it has now. Compared to before, CoTA, it was like you had that amber generating monster in Untamed if you picked up the right cards. Otherwise, it's a little lackluster, or if it's board focused, then it's like just struggling. It was what it feels like. It had a lot of cards to make up for it, but it just had that one-sidedness to it. Now, in set 4, you're looking at a deck through a lot of different variables, and we all know look for amber control, amber generation, artifact control that you keep yelling at us about. Creature control becomes that much more important as the board becomes more important. All these factors, and when you gauge the old school Untamed, it had a ton of weaknesses and holes if you're looking at all those categories, but it was number 1 in amber generation. Now you look at this set, and it has everything. It has the feel of generating that amber while having all the other tools that you want to see in a deck to respond to situations. Now, obviously, there's only 12 cards you can have within this house, so it's not like it's going to have all the pieces for you in any given deck, but you could. And it all depends now. Like, you're going to hear me say it depends. It depends, because, yeah, it depends on the selection of cards within each of the houses in your deck now. But Untamed can fill that third slot in whichever role you need it to, potentially. So, cards like Savage Clash to wipe the board, a bit more evening of the playing field on the board. Cards like Pismire to increase key costs through having mutants on the board. Again, that's a key control, amber control in a form of key cost control that Untamed didn't really have, aside from like the Mermooks from first set 1 and the Mustic Mermook in set 2, and so on and so forth. On top of that, there's also two other key cards. Cephalois to prevent your amber being stolen, albeit a bit more situational in that you need to have 4 amber in your pool before that effect kicks in. And same thing for Fandangle, which is a witch, 3-power creature that allows you, if you have 4 more amber in your pool, your non-untamed creatures come in play ready. These are giant effects that really change the game if they're not addressed. Untamed also has artifact control and Reclaim by Nature. It has a key cheat in Keyfrog. Like, it has everything. And in terms of the amber generator that I've been playing with, it's the Dark Harbinger, and depending on how many upgrades you get with him, each of those has an amber pip. Any action you play in Untamed will re-ready Dark Harbinger, and it'll be able to reap again. So, like, between that, one of the biggest amber pip cards being
Fertility Chant?
Fertility Chant, yes. Because I realize now that my document I have open is just a bunch of pictures of cards that are unique to set 4 and not the recurring cards from other sets. So that with the
Wild
Vault.
Bounty.
Yeah, the Wild Bounty that doubles up your amber bonus pips when you play it. So combos like that can run 8 amber and 2 cards. Things like that are very reminiscent of the CoTA Untamed. And all the other pieces that I just talked about. Not to mention, there's a few other cards, but I'll just leave it there for now before I go on a whole tangent for Untamed. But that's why I feel it's such a great house, especially in this set. it has all the different tools you need to be competitive, and it has that feel of the old school CoTA Untamed that I really love.
Just to add on to what Benson said, to me, and Mass Mutation Untamed is probably the second best, probably actually the third best house in all of the sets. Just because he mentioned he has everything. I think Mass Mutation has everything. He has, to me, the way I counted it is has 5 different ways to generate. He mentioned the Dark Harbinger, the Fandangle, the Wild Bounty for Trinity Chant. There's also a Vault's Blessing, which is an action card. You play the card. It has an Ember Pip, and every mutant you have, you gain 1, and the opponent does 2. Also, the Lumilu, which is a 4-power beast creature that when you reap, you gain each for each beast creature on the board. My point is, there's 5 different ways other than the pips that Untamed can generate. It has Amber control now in Pismire, artifact control, like he said already, anti-steal, and he has a board clear. What more do you need, honestly? So I think Untamed is probably the third best house, next to Shadows CoTA, number 1. Number 2 is Saurian. And to me, third is Saurian, Worlds Collide, and then Mass Mutation, Untamed. So I just wanted to add on to why Untamed is so good in this set. That's taking out all the enhanced cards too. That's not even on factor yet.
Yep.
So, are you guys calling Untamed in this set as the best house?
What does Josh think?
Yo, man. Whatever house Gambling Den is in, that's the best house.
What if it
No,
was Untamed?
So potentially every house, because you can get a Maverick Gambling Den.
True.
No, I mean, Untamed can be pretty nasty. Like, you guys already talked about, Dark Harbinger with a bunch of actions. You can even get around in Furnace if you have Fertility Chant and Wild Bounty in the same hand, right? Like, you're netting 4 regardless. You're just losing the potential of 8, right?
Yeah.
But that said, like, I like what they did in this set overall, particularly with Shadows, in my opinion, because they kind of made the steal more like they put caveat to steals to the different cards. Like, for example, Ransack is a play, steal 1, discard the top card of your deck. If that is a Shadows card, trigger this effect again. So it has to be a Shadows card to steal, but at the same time, if it is, and it is, and it is, and it is, then you just keep on stealing, right? So I like that they've added a risk benefit ratio, like risk benefit kind of like situation to Shadows as a whole. I also like that with the caveat that it's added in Steel effects, you have more disruption added in Shadows in the form of like Subtle Auto, for example, right? Which is a 1-power creature that on play you just discard a card from your hand. I love that Rad Penny, you steal 1, and when it's destroyed, you shuffle it back into your deck. Little steal here and there that you can bring back. I think is what makes this like close games, what decides close games, in my opinion, and what makes things a little bit more exciting is a little bit of steel that you get to save for when it matters. And I think that's what I noticed in this set, and that's what I love about the evolution of Shadows. It's become like this instant reward in CoTA to, you need to think about it. You need to save it for that important play, for that game-changing play.
So you're calling Shadows still, Josh? Is that for you?
Yes, and but that it's not because of anything I just said. It's really because of Borrow, an absolutely disgusting artifact that says you literally just borrow your opponent's artifacts and that's it. And it grants you an Amber Pip. Awesome.
Fair enough. Cool. I mean, for myself, I think Sanctum should get a call out for this set. I think just the fact that they did come back, but I think Scrivener Fabian really changes up this house by itself. Just that one card where it's I believe a 3-powered creature.
Yep.
Where it allows. Sorry?
Yep, 3-power creature. You're right.
Yeah, 3-power creature, and then it allows basically all capture pips to be, you can steal with them, which is pretty amazing, I think. And then especially when a lot of Sanctum does build upon capturing and adding those capture pips to your deck, I think it makes it a very formidable set and allowing you to start stealing now with Sanctum, whereas before they would never even think about stealing. And then I think, especially with, and then one of my favorite cards for this set as well is the Fangs of Giselheart. That, or even that whole Giselheart suite of cards, like the Giselheart Zealot, the what is it? Is the leader is just Giselheart as well?
Is Mad Prophet Giselheart.
Yeah, Prophet Giselheart, Giselheart Standard, Giselheart's Wrath. Like every Giselheart card, I think, is really good in this set. I mean, I'm searching if I can find a deck with all 5 of them. That'd be amazing. But Fangs of Giselheart itself, allowing you to purge the most powerful creature, I think it feels like it takes a big weight off your back, right? Especially when you see that huge Deacylus across the board, or even if it's not that big, if it's just a 6-powered Gluttony, you throw the Fangs of Giselheart down and just get rid of that thing. It feels so good. Of course, when you have a big creature on your side, it doesn't feel so good because you're gonna hit yourself. But but being able to have that response, that 1-card response to any kind of huge board state, effectively, especially when in this set, board is pretty big, big component as well, right? I feel like having a response to that is a huge deal. So aside from Dis, Untamed, Shadows, and even I guess Sanctum, I guess we have 3 more houses. What is it? Saurians, Logos, and Star Alliance.
Yep.
Mhm.
Are these considered one of the lesser tiers, or are one of these houses one of the lesser tiers in the set, or is there a lesser tier in the set? I know
don't think so.
last set everyone poo-pooed Brobnar, but or does everything work? Does all sets work well in this set by itself?
I think
What
so.
do you guys think?
For
I
me,
think.
sorry.
Yeah, no, you
jumping
go
in
ahead.
on
You
that.
go ahead.
I actually didn't say my favorite house in Mass Mutation. I do like Untamed, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite house. I'm just saying that it was one of the best house. But my favorite house is probably Star Alliance in Mass Mutation, because
Okay.
that house can have everything too, but the card pool is a little bit more uncommon and rare compared to Untamed being more common. So for me, why I like Star Alliance is it can have everything too. Artifact control and that what's that 1-power creature? Tonkaru or Kankaroo, one of those when you use that
Is it a
artifact.
Cartanu or whatever?
Yeah,
Cartanu,
something like that. There's also Tachyon Pulse, which is your artifact control. But like I said, they're rare, so it's harder to pull them off. Probably one of my favorite combination. You're gonna hate me for saying this, but Coastal Stone's fun when you have it on your side. Not gonna lie. So that's fun. Another one is any combination of transporter platform with a bunch of upgrades. And before I dive into what my main thing I want to talk about in Star Alliance is that what I noticed in Star Alliance and Mass Mutation, it has a lot more upgrades. Like I think based on deck openings, I noticed there's a lot more upgrades in Star Alliance. Which whenever I have a lot of upgrades, I look for transporter platform, which is I'm sure we mentioned it before, but return an artifact when you use it, return a creature, and all of its upgrade to your hand. So that's a generator. So if you combine it with Crystal Stone, it could be really nasty. There's also Armory Officer Nell, which is Star Alliance allows you to draw and house cheat if you have that combo. So if you have multiple Armory Officer Nell, you can have your whole deck in your hand. I think Star Alliance still has a lot more things to offer, / more things with tools that you can have, which is the card pool of it is just a little bit more uncommon and rare, so it's a little bit harder to pull off than Untamed.
Yeah, I think that's also just for that card pool in terms of upgrades. I believe you lose out all the blasters, so I feel like they had to make up for all those upgrades somewhere.
That's good. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but it's a lot of those cards are. Oh no, I think you're talking about like access denied, like those types of upgrades too, right?
Yeah,
Where it's
every
like,
upgrade.
yeah, you cancel either one for each type effectively. Like you
Mhm.
can't fight, you can't reap, you can't do something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like I said, like I noticed, it's just like usually in like the previous sets, there's not a lot of upgrades, but in Mass Mutation, there's a lot more upgrades, especially
Yeah.
with Star Alliance.
In Star Alliance, there's like
I-
2 specific creatures that focus solely on the upgrades that are on it too. Like the special, that's Z Force Agent 14.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
there's also that girl, Hayden Oswin. Reap, gain 1 amber for each upgrade on Hayden Oswin. So like there's 2 creatures that directly benefit from having upgrades on them. And there's additional creatures that work around upgrades, like you mentioned, Nell, that lets you draw when you play an upgrade. Away team, when it's destroyed, all the upgrades come back to hand, so it's like a transporter platform built into it, into its destroyed effect. Things like that. That like on top of compared to Worlds Collide, where there was creatures that can be played as upgrades as well. There's the security droid and stealth droid in this set too. So exactly like you said, upgrades are huge in Star Alliance this set.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is there a house that isn't as good, or is everything okay? Like, are all the houses well rounded this time around? Like, has Keyforge hit its stride in this set?
I'd say overall yes, though my least favorite house of this set would have to be Saurians. And it may just be a somewhat like due to bias or because I've seen Saurians in set 3 that makes me feel like this is a way underpowered version of it. And
Mhm.
it just like that drop from its height followed by everybody else's rise just makes Saurians feel like it's the bottom of the pack now. So reason being is like set 3 it introduced that whole there's piles and piles of amber on the board on creatures, and you could potentially use them if you had Strix, if you had Brachus, and things like that. You had ways to minimize it. Well, you still have Ludo, so all that amber can just go back to the common pile if your creatures are destroyed. But there's also a lot of filler space that's been filled with cards that remove amber from creatures in this set for Saurians. So cards like Humble gives you an amber. When you play it, exhaust the creature, and if you do, move 3 amber from that creature to the common supply. Why would you do that if the amber's sitting on your opponent's card? That's meant to target your own creature, in which case it just protects the amber from going back to the opponent. But like the net gain is a lot less based off these kind of cards compared to what was in set 3. So that's why I feel like Saurians are a lot weaker in that sense. And there's a lot more artifacts in the set overall. So the artifacts that come with the Saurians, and I given that like Amphora Chemtura and things like that are amazing, but there is like a location artifact like. Oh, sorry. There's almost like there's a monument. Sorry, monument to various different creatures that are in Saurian House, that take up some of these slots, and sometimes I find those artifacts just to be a little lackluster, in how that deck functions. Not to say that those are just bad cards. It's just that I've seen more common than not that it's not that great. So that's my thoughts on Saurians.
Just to add on to the Saurian thought, I think it definitely went down. I do agree with that, but the way to play Saurian in this set is it needs a little bit more thinking because of the less warding, less exalt. I think the game designers wanted to. I don't want to say give more punishments for exalt, but it's more like less exalting on the board. It's a lot more capture, but as far as exalt, it's definitely a lot lower. Slash warding is definitely a lot lower. There's only I think defense initiative that wards and ancient power. Those are the only ones that ward, as far as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least in my opinion, warding was really strong in Worlds
Yeah.
Collide. Also, the way Saurian is played now is about amber movement. It's either you capture, even in Citizen Tricks, which is a play reap creature 3 power that when you steal, when you unplay, you steal 1. When you reap, steal 1, but you have to exalt it. So that's a little bit more of a drawback to definitely Worlds Collide, but it's a lot more thinky because there's one card I hate in Saurian. It's a Curiosaurus. I have no idea how to play that card. Like, I tried to. When Benson and I were playing, I was like, how the heck do you play this card? There's a lot more ruling questions on it. Maybe I just don't know it, but just my point is just there's a lot more amber movement. And if you can find a way to put all that amber on the other side and take it back, it's great. But if you have the card Exile, it's great. But it's just more like a lot more amber movement in Saurian.
So I actually have a rush deck with Curiosaurus, and one of the 2 ways you can play it is you can set yourself up for a steal by moving those creatures by destroying your opponent's creatures, putting that amber on yours, like saving your steal cards like Bonithing if you can archive that and playing it if you so happen to lose the ember on your side of the board. Or you can use it for cards like Mole, which is an upgrade in Shadows, which you put on your opponent's creature, and you can actually spend Ember on that creature to forge a key with, right? So there's a couple ways to play it, but it's very niche. So yeah, I do agree with like the intricacies that is in Saurian with the monuments and all that. I think it's like slowed down, but that's because of the fact that I think they sped up everything else. Like Logos is insane. Like
Yep.
so much archiving for literally no reason. Well, there is a reason why, but the archiving is insane. And I think Saurian's supposed to hold the fort while you build up whatever you're archiving, to complement that fort that the Saurians have built for you, in my opinion.
Good way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that it sounds like every house kind of is fulfilling its kind of role in this set. I feel like, and the cards that were developed were taking that into mind into what types of roles and how they should function and how they can give you a specific feel. So I guess perhaps there is no one bad set or bad house in this set, which is great. I mean, everyone can enjoy each house as it's expected to be, I guess, and be able to perhaps understand when going into this set. Understand once they see dinosaurs, they expect them to be a little beefier. They see big knights, they expect them to be a little bit beefier. Or perhaps they see like technology like Logos, it runs a little faster or something. So I feel like everything runs fairly in sync with what is to be expected for each house, which I think it's a great achievement in being able to do that with all 7 houses. So where do you guys have you guys pulled off any cool moves or anything with this new set while playing? I know we've been playing mostly in pandemic and in pandemic mode, where we haven't had a whole lot of exposure into the I guess the meta play and organized play with mass mutation. Has there been any impressive moves that you've pulled off with this set thus far?
Yeah.
I mean, aside from Josh and his 3-house cheat with his sins and
Yeah. When you brought up the Scrivener Fabian in Sanctum, I would still say this is my favorite deck, even though the ratings kind of been jumping back and forth. It has triple Fabian,
Whoa.
and the other 2 houses are Shadows and Untamed. The Untamed has a Dark Harbinger with 3 of the upgrades, and they're all unique, so it's not stuck doing one specific thing. It has 3 copies of Resurgence and a bunch of Mutants. So this thing moves pretty fast. And in Shadows, it's this one's I've got 2 decks, so I'm just trying to remember which Shadows this was. This one's just more support, but yeah, the highlights are the Untamed and Sanctum in this deck. And when there is a ton of amber capture pips with triple Fabian, not that they stack or anything, but the fact that it's consistently there. Like, you take out one of my Scriveners, another one's coming out to take its place. And that effect is fairly consistently there. That I can always keep taking the amber. It's almost like every turn you'll hear me say, play this down, steal an amber for the capture icon that's on it. And then everything else that's being played that turn. So I like exactly what John described earlier about that Scrivener changing House Sanctum and bringing that steal function in. Yeah, it's absolutely like great to play through. And this Untamed having the pieces, all the pieces that I like to have. It has a Cephaloid to prevent steal as well. Like, that's what makes me love the Untamed in this set. And yeah, not a specific play, but just in general, one of my best like deck.
Nice. Dennis or Josh, you got any specific deck that or specific plays that you guys pulled off that were pretty impressive?
I have a play I want to pull off. I haven't pulled off yet.
And what's that?
Let me get back to you in a second.
All right, while you think about it, my play it's gonna be the deck that really drew me back into Mass Mutation. It's the deck with Star Alliance, Dees, and Saurian. Like I mentioned before, Saurian's about amber movement. So for me, I have a Saurian deck that literally has a lot of pips. I have a deck that I have a card that has enhancement of the card is Spoils of Battle, which is as an amber pip normally, one amber pip that when you play it, capture one from your opponent, and then each creature with an amber on it captures one from its opponent. So this deck has an Impora Captura, a Quixelstone, and that card with Spoils of Battle that has 3 different pips. So if I can have all my artifacts out, it's an artifact-based deck. If I play one creature, it's going to be... Point is, it's going to be exiled to the other side of the board. And then every pip that I play is going to be captured with a Empora Captura. So the way I'm gonna steal your amber is every pip I play, I just stack it to one creature and then exile to the other side. While Quixelstone is out, so it's protecting it, so you can't kill it. And then I'm gonna steal it later. That's the play that I usually try to pull off with that deck.
Nice.
Yeah, if you want, I guess if you want to circle back to me, I have a deck that has Johnny Longfingers, and Johnny Longfingers is a 4-power creature that says each mutant creature gains destroyed steal 1. And this deck actually has 11 mutants and 2 resurgence cards. And resurgence is an action that says play a creature from your discard pile to your hand. If it's a mutant, return another creature from a discard pile to your hand. So a lot of the non-mutant a lot of the non-mutant creatures in my deck are Amber Control, like Brabble, which is a creature that upon its destruction, your opponent loses X amount of Amber. So the combo that I really want to pull off here is essentially to build a board of mutants and then just like steal like 10 Amber from my opponent by playing Gateway to Dis. I've literally like waited to let my opponent forge like 2 keys just so I could have enough to just play and make them lose all their Ember in one turn. I just want to be able to like pull it off just once. Even if I lose, it's fine.
Nice. Yeah, as for myself, I think for me, it's I have a Logos deck, which kind of go nutsos in terms of archiving and playing cards. So it has a library card. It has all basically the cards that you want for archiving, which is Casual Loop, and then it has Sloppy Lab Work, lets you archive, and then it has QMEX with a draw pip, and then also Lethalogica as well. So and also a library card. So if you can get everything firing at once, you effectively can get a couple turns where you have your whole deck in your hand or on the board, and he just starts spitting things out. It's pretty crazy. It's and I've done it. I mean, I haven't like spit my whole deck out at once or anything like that, but I've gotten to points where I have, been able to dump at least half my deck out and then work with a very streamlined remaining deck to call the rest of my houses for the following turns, which is a lot of fun. So I think Logos, although we didn't mention it, or we did briefly mention it, Logos is very good, very effective at what it does. If you can get those few cards into your hands with the proper enhancements and whatnot. Of course, getting those cards with those proper enhancements is another story, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, based off of our discussion thus far and what we've done today, would you guys recommend someone, if they saw Mass Mutations as a deck on the shelf, would you recommend them to purchase this over the other decks at all? What do you guys say? I feel like it's a resounding yes, but is there any assumptions or any other caveats that you would want to give to someone that's jumping into Keyforge to perhaps maybe stray away from Mass Mutations, or is this go for it, like full steam ahead with the set?
Nothing. I have absolutely nothing against buying Mass Mutations. It's definitely a green light for Mass Mutations, but I will say that it doesn't mean it's the better choice than any other set. Because I've worked my way through 4 decks in that display box, and a bunch of them are lower rated ones, and some of them have very little enhancements, which doesn't give you much of an experience of what this set provides. So like all those things can happen, right? Like, but as a set as a whole, yes, absolutely great to play, and definitely go for it. If you're trying to choose between all 4, yeah, I'll nudge you in that direction, but not overly so. And if you're new to the game, try them all. Just try them all. That's probably the best advice. And people will say get maybe multiples of each set. And yeah, there's always ways to get, especially from the older sets, get more decks for cheap if you just want to experience how it plays like.
Okay. Am I hearing the same thing from both Josh and Dennis as well?
I'm gonna let Josh go first because I feel like I'm gonna take a while.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, green light for Mass Mutation all day, but at the same time, like if you're like someone who does the research first and kind of watches YouTube videos and watches gameplay and you think it's a little complicated for you, get some of the cheaper sets. Go for Worlds Collide, which will have everything apart from like the enhancements and the mutant traits. So you're basically just missing out on 2 things from Mass Mutation, but you'll have the kind of like the easier barrier, like entry level kind of way to get into the game without overcomplicating it too much, especially if you're playing with friends that are looking for a more casual card game to enjoy. And then get into Mass Mutation if the interest is there. But honestly, if you want to jump right into Mass Mutation, you can totally do it.
Cool. And Dennis?
All right, I'm gonna go through this in 2 different ways. I'll try not to take long, but I might fail at that. Okay, so first way is if you want to be economical with the money you spend, I would say go to the previous sets first, just because they're on sale / they're a lot cheaper for sure compared to the newest set. As any other card games, newest set's gonna be the most expensive. If you're not going to the economical way, I personally think you go green light, Mass Mutation, because to me, it's the most fun opening decks. Number 1, number 2, most fun play wise, because you will have a board. You're not gonna play with no board. And number 3, because all of the enhancements running around, you have the potential to to pull off a very super OP deck. Because I'm gonna talk about archetypes here for a second. If you have a house combo that doesn't normally draw, let's say in previous sets like these Shadows and Tame, there's not a lot of draws there. But because of Untamed enhancements, if you have 3 or 4 Resurgence or 1 or 2, you have potential to draw, so you can go fast. point is, the enhancements really add another layer into the game. And who knows, you might have more pips than normal, like more Amber pips normal, more draws, etc. It just, honestly, Mass Mutation has a lot more intricacies to it compared to other sets. And not to mention the effects of the cards itself.
That's true, though. I believe Fantasy Flight also mentioned that the enhancement feature is not going to be in every single set coming forth as well. So depending on what comes out in the future sets, we may or may not see this enhancement thing again, or at least we can't expect it for every single set. So for now, it's unique to this set only. All right. Well, hopefully, with this discussion from today, the listeners, are able to get a glimpse into our thoughts of Mass Mutation and what our thoughts are. Of course, once again, I'm sure we've left off many things off the table which we were not able to get into discussion. And for all these items, and if there are any thoughts or criticisms, we welcome you, the listener, to reach out to us at our contacts at extrashards@gmail.com, extrashards@gmail.com. If you have any personal gripes, feel free to reach out to the individuals that have been on this podcast. We have Benson. Would you like to plug yourself?
Yeah. My tag is Chaos Chrono, ChaosChrno. You can find me on YouTube or on Twitch.
Cool. And with Josh?
My name is Jodobby, Jodobbi. I do Keyforge and Digimon TCG. Find me on YouTube.
And Dennis?
No shoutouts right now, or no plugs, but I just want to say, I want to give a shout out, to Fantasy Flight Games for giving us that 10 extra shards per scan, the first release of Mass Mutation, since we didn't have OP. So shout out to Fantasy Flight for giving us that. Bring it back more often, though.
Well, once again, we thank you as a listener for spending this past hour or so with us and to listen to a few guys discuss about Keyforge, the unique card game. Feel free to tune back in next week and we will have a new episode for you. And until then, this is Keys to ESP. Happy forging, everybody.
Happy Forge. Okay.